welcome back to Oh Yes You Can. Today we're talking about watercolors, and I've called our session Awash with Watercolors. I don't know about you, but a lot of people, including myself, were absolutely avoiding watercolors for a long time because they were too hard, couldn't control them, didn't like them, on and on and on. Then I found out some techniques that help me control watercolors, and I am learning to love them. So I'd like to show you some simple techniques to get you started today and see if maybe you also like watercolors. There's a kit at the library, limited supply, but in it you will find, it has a piece of water. I'm going to show you on the background so you can see the size of it. It has a piece of watercolor paper, and I don't know if you can see that sketch or not, but there's a very light pencil sketch to get us started. We're going to do a lighthouse today. I love lighthouses, and they are fun, and I think we can get a very successful finished product for you by doing this. Anyhow, the kit contains the watercolor paper. It also contains this very smallish kind of, well, this is Bristol board. It could be cardstock. It's a little bit stiffer paper, perhaps. Don't lose that. That's going to be very important to us in a little while. So hang on to this puppy. And you also should have a beginning set of watercolors. These are just what the kids use, and they're going to work very well for our purposes today. The exception might be this brush. It probably looks, a lot like this. I don't like them. I don't like them. Since I have learned to really like watercolors, I have indulged, and I don't ever ask you to get expensive stuff to start with, because you might try it once and say, I don't think I like that. But I do like that, so I've got kind of a supply of watercolor brushes. One of my favorites, this is a regular watercolor brush, and you can see that it's very full. It holds a large amount of, I don't know if you can see that or not. It holds a large amount of water. It also is maneuverable. I can squeeze the water out and get a very nice sharp edge. Can you see that? Very nice straight edge out of it. Or back in the water, get a little wet, squeeze all that water out. And if I want like a pencil point sharp, I can form the brush into a point. So this is a regular watercolor brush that I like and use a lot. You won't need that today. Another thing I like and use a lot, this is an all-purpose set of brushes, quite inexpensive. They come in a variety of sizes and shapes. I think I don't have the one here I wanted you to see. There's a liner brush that has a very scanty amount of bristles. This is almost a liner here, so that you can do very fine lines. You're not going to need these today, but if you are enjoying watercolors and want to try it, this is not a bad investment. And as I say, they're all-purpose, so you can use them for acrylics, you can use them for oils, you can use them for a lot of things. As long as you take care of them and clean them after each use, they'll last you a long time too. So that's something else I use at home that you won't need today. However, from your kitchen, your house, you will need a tub of water. I suggest 2 tubs. Don't have to do this, but I find that if I clean, I don't want to use that one, I want to use the brush that you'll be using. If I clean my brush in one, pretty soon the water's getting dirty, right? So if I go back with a different color or want to change colors on my painting and I've used this dirty water, I may get color mixes on my painting that's not what I want. So I suggest 1 tub for washing your brush, 1 tub for starting a new color of paint so that this one stays clean and this one might get dirty. I think today it might be a good idea because going back to this tray of paints, this is your mixing area. And if this works for you for mixing colors, great. If, like mine, it didn't work so well, I found a waterproof saucer so that I could mix colors over here. And the reason I needed to do this was because I needed to get my brushing tool down flat and getting the amount of paint on it that I needed. So this is optional. You might need that, you might not. You will, however, need paper towels. And I folded them to make a nice cushion. And these come in so handy. Did I mention that? No, I didn't mention yet. Too much water is a hazard to watercolors. Too much paint is another hazard to watercolors. So learning to control the amount of moisture you put on your watercolor paper is going to give you much happier results. So if you've got a lot of water in your brush, I can see a big old drip coming off there. You probably want to tap it off and take some of that moisture away so that you're controlling how much moisture goes on your painting. Okay, with all that being said, I think I didn't mention a pencil, but you might like to have a pencil just for one step of our artwork today. I'm going to move my equipment into an overhead projector so that we can work together for a while. Why don't you gather what you need and join me in just a minute or two, okay? All right, let's see what we've got here now. I've got my little mixing plate. I've got 2 tubs of water. And let's see, I've got my paints, good for me. I've got my folded paper towels to make a pad. I've got myself a pencil this time. I forgot to tell you that before, but I got a pencil for me too now. And I have this. I should turn it this way. I'm using this just so that you can see what I'm doing better. It has nothing to do with what we're doing. This was the little template, the little pattern that I told you was in your packet from the library. As always, if you did not pick up a packet from the library, watercolor paper is available in any arts and crafts store. I suggest that when you're getting watercolor for any purpose, unless it's for kids to play with, get 140-pound cold press paper. There are lesser weights that are less expensive too, of course, but they curl and they just don't give you the finished product that the 140-pound press does. You can go more expensive. There are lots of other weights and of course more expensive prices. This works well for me for most of what I do. Anyhow, you should have that template. I ask you to hang on to that paper. If my paper seems stained, you're going to get a clue that it's not just a piece of paper. It is a paintbrush. And I'll show you how we use that in a minute. We are going to begin, I told you we're doing a lighthouse. We are going to begin with the sky. And today, arbitrarily, we're going to make it a blue sky, just so that we're all working on the same page. So in your watercolors, using that brush that I don't like very much because it will work for this purpose, assuming you can get it out of the tray, that is. There we go. Find the blue paint and put a few drops of water into the blue paint, just to soften it up. Okay. Now, I think this is not the paints I used when I practiced this at home, so I think maybe I can do the mixing over here on this tray, and I won't need this. We'll see if it works for me. I'm going to use this same brush because it's got lots of moisture in it at the moment, and that's what I want right now because I'm mixing paint. And I'm going to bring some over here and put it onto my mixing tray. That's a pretty blue, isn't it? It's the cerulean sky blue. Now, that's a pretty dark blue. It may be a little darker than we want, so I'm going to drag it out a bit this way, go back into my water tub. See what happened as soon as I put a dirty brush in that water? It starts turning blue. But I want a little more water over here so that I can weaken, reduce, lighten the color of the blue for right now because we want to do our sky first. This is a more potent, more stronger blue because I have more paint and less water. As I add water, the paint color gets lighter, of course. So if I want it to get darker, I have to go the other way and add more paint. More paint, darker, more water, lighter. Okay, I'm going to put that brush back and wash it out right now. And going back to this that I told you is a paintbrush. It's got a long side, just for interest. Notice that it measures exactly the side of your lighthouse. So it's a tape measure and a brush. The end of it is what we're going to be using now. This is also going to be a brush. This is the end I used before, so I'll use it again. And I'm going to just dip this in my lighter portion of the blue paint. Watch while I do this, and then you can do it. I'm going to kind of hold it straight up and down like that, and over here, I'm going to do some zigzag hints of a sky. That's almost too light. Okay, over here, not exactly across from, just somewhere over in here, I'm going to add a little bit more, and maybe just for fun, a little bit more up here. We don't need very much. And if some of yours comes down and blends a little bit, see how that soaks in quickly and it doesn't blend very fast. So we've got our sky in already. Okay. I went over here and I wiped the sky end of my brush. And the next thing I'm going to do is put in the left side. We're going to pretend that our sunlight or our light source is coming in from this direction today. So this side of the lighthouse is going to be lighter, brighter. Remember this long edge of our paintbrush paper measures exactly, so that I need to get paint all along the edge of this, and I don't want it to be too dark because the sunlight is making this side of our lighthouse brighter. So I'm going to again use that lighter blue that I mixed, and while it's still wet, lay my paper. Well, some days work better than others. Go back and get some more paint because I didn't have enough in my... I'm getting it, but I just don't have enough paint mixed up on my tray, so I have to go back and mix more paint for my purposes. And again, I'm using more water than paint because I don't want this particular part to be particularly dark because it's in the sunlight on a nice sunny day along the shore. So I'm going to go back and get some more paint on, try it again, and I'm going to try to just kind of drag it across. I got a little bit more of what I wanted there. The roundness, we're getting the roundness of our lighthouse as we drag. Here's the effect. See, this was a different blue in my other paint box. This is not the cerulean, this is the ultramarine blue. But this is my sky. Here I got a better drag and a better blending of my colors. And clearly you can see what the next step is. I need to go back to the template like you're using. Make sure I have it the right direction. And I think because this is the darker side, the side that's away from the light source, I need to darken my blue. So I'm going to add more paint to the liquid. I'm using that brush that I don't like because it's kind of good for mixing. And truthfully, when I see how light this blue is, I think that that's not going to be enough by itself just being blue. So I'm going to go to one of the darker colors here on the end of my paint, and I'm checking it on the pad to see what color I got. Come on. See, what I should have done is put drips of water on this so it could be softening, and I didn't. Well, come on, color, give me what I want. Anyhow, what I'm trying to do is mix in a little bit of the darker color with the blue. There, it's beginning to loosen up a little bit, not very much. Hopefully that'll be dark enough. Now, with that same side of our paint paper, and because it works better for me, I'm going to turn my paper upside down for just a minute. Come in from this other side, put my brush right against the edge of it, and again, that worked better. Didn't get it as dark as I wanted, but it worked better. Okay? What I can do, because this is not going to be dark enough to suit me, is continue to get my paint softened up. And when that gets a little drier, because I don't want to try to mix watercolors when they're wet. You know what happens when you try to mix them wet, don't you? They blend together and you get a totally different color that you don't want at all. There, I got a color that's willing to soften up for me a bit. Still may not be dark enough, but I can go back and do that some more times until I get the darkness that I'm wanting on that side. Again, straight along the edge of my lighthouse, like so. Still not dark enough. Maybe your paints will work better for you. Okay, what are we doing next? Let's put that aside for right now. And I'm going to wash that mixer brush. And while I'm thinking about it, we're going to want to put some trees and stuff like that in after a bit. So I need to go in and add drips of water to my green. And considering how slow this paint box is to soften up, I'm going to put quite a bit of water in here and let it get started. And we're also going to put in some rocks. So let's go back, and I think this was brown that I found over here. Yeah. Be sure that you've got some water in the brown so it's softening up. Ha ha ha. Not brown. Purple. That's why we test. That's why we test it. There we go. There's the brown one. Looks like. Okay. What are we doing next? All right. Let's go back. I mentioned that we shouldn't put wet paint on wet paint. We're doing a wet on dry technique today so that the surface we're touching should be dry. What we're adding is the wet. That way we can control where the colors are going. So let's see, let's go back to our little brushy brush here. And I think I need to use a clean end because mine's getting pretty messy. All right. This is the top of the lighthouse per se, and the light itself, its purpose in being, is up above here, and it's going to be somewhat smaller, narrower I should say, than the lighthouse itself. So with our handy dandy little magic paintbrush and our blue paint. Let's put, I'm using the narrow end of the paintbrush. Let's put our second story in. Boy, I'm having trouble getting enough paint going for my purposes today. Again, this is going to be the lighter side because it's facing the sunlight. A little bit of roundness to it. And the darker side over here. So this is the effect that I'd like for you to have. Get my darker color here. Straight up. Okay, so now we've got, that's not dark enough. Not dark enough for the dark side. Yeah, I'm getting there a little bit better. Okay, now that's where the lighthouse, the light itself is for the lighthouse that shines out across the sea. We also need to let that dry before we can do anything else there, but we need to put the railing in for the, I suppose it's called a catwalk, I don't know, but where they can go up and walk around and clean the lenses and keep it sparkling and giving out sufficient light to help the ships at sea see the danger of those rocks. Okay, while we're waiting for that to happen, let's go back, and this should be dry enough we can work with this. I'm going to have you, am I ready for you to do that? No, I think we'll change and do something else. This is the one I should be working on. Let's go in on this one that you're working on and think about the ocean. The ocean is, well, on a nice day like we're having today. It's not going to be all wavy and bumpy. So we're going to make it nice and smooth out across there. This is going to be our water. And it's just like milk in a bowl. It's not going to be higher on one side than the other. So it needs to be across, even distance up from the bottom of the page. And I think mine's a little bit there. That's probably the only thing you'll need that pencil for today. Now, come back in with that handy dandy little brush and hope that your blue is still working, and if it isn't, wet it some more, because we are also going to put in some ocean just like we did the sky. A little bit of back and forth, leaving some white, like there might be some waves out there. Light sparkling on some waves perhaps, like so. Just a little squiggle, just a hint that it's there. Now, that needs to dry also before we can do anything else. So, let's go back. My little paintbrush is getting awfully wet. Maybe I should have had a second one in here. Someplace if you can find a dry spot on your paintbrush, I want you to make a new paintbrush. In fact, I think I'm going to take off my dirty painted part and just make a clean paintbrush. And what I'm doing is making a smaller paintbrush than what you had before. Like so. And we softened some of these darker colors a while ago, and I hope that they're still soft. Let's see what I've got here. Not real soft, so maybe I can try this color. Mine just must be drinking up the water because they are not staying soft. Now I got too much all at once and I had to take some off on the paper towel. What we're going to do now is put in that catwalk up here for the workman to walk around. And it needs some Need some safety rails. Going up. 1, 2, 3. Doesn't matter how many. Just enough that you get the understanding that there's some fins, I guess you could call it. Mine went crooked. Should be straight like that. Now we need the rails that connect that also. So using that same little narrow paintbrush on the straight edge. I can tell that my eyes are seeing things crookedy today. Maybe the wind's maybe the wind's blowing that lighthouse. Oh, that's bad news. All right, I had to tear myself a new paintbrush because that other one was just all soaked up. So I made a new little narrow paintbrush, and I'm going back into the dark paint at our side of our light, the light portion of our lighthouse up here needs a roof on it. So we're going back in with our dark color again. And I hope I've got dark paint on here so I can come up with an angle like that. And down like that. And maybe you can even kind of color those in. My paintbrush isn't working as well as I had hoped it would for you, so I have to apologize for that. Lots of times there might be like a light on top to warn airplanes, so you might put a little antenna up on top also, like so. Those are not as clean and smooth as I would like to have them, and that's because my paintbrush is getting soggy. So I'll go in and see if I can straighten it up, and I may just mess it up more. Okay, a little bit of dark over here on this side because it is on the side away. Ooh, I'm getting a better effect with that just by rubbing a little harder. I'm going to come down the side also. I want that a little darker. There, I got a little bit more what I wanted. That looks a little bit better, doesn't it? I don't know if we can get one more use out of this paintbrush or not, but I'm going to try to put in a window here. Oh, that's an awfully big window, but it'll be all right. And if you want another one, you can. This would be, I imagine, as the lighthouse keeper is going up the stairs that are inside the lighthouse, that he could stop and check and look out and see the weather or whatever outside as he's going up the stairs. Okay? All right, moving right along. Let's go to that brush I don't like. Take some of the water out of it. Make sure our green, where's the green? Make sure the green is still working. And over here on the right side, as I'm looking at the lighthouse, I want us to put in, I got it in the blue, not in the green. I want us to put in some dab, dab, dab notions of trees and bushes. Just notions of. We're not painting them in, we're dabbing them in. I've got weird colors in my paint box. But they're kind of green. All right, going into the dirty water to clean my brush, going into the clean water rather, to make sure it's clean. Now, while that's drying a little bit, I'm going to go over here on this side and put in, oh, let's see, this is a rocky a shoreline that's very full of rocks. So we're going to give some rocks here, just over and down, maybe another one down in here, odd shape, over and down, on down, and then we're just going to go to the sand down here and squiggle it in. Aha! Okay, I'm taking that brown out now in the dirty water, taking the water out of my brush. Now I've got all this strange expanse here. What's happening here? Is it going to be ocean? Is it going to be some more? I think I'll put in a little more greenery here. A little more greenery here. And this time I want it to be not so bright as this one because it's further away. So I'm mixing over here to get more water in my paint, make it lighter. And again, like we did over here, just dab, dab, dab. I don't think I mentioned it, but watercolors dry lighter than you think they're going to be. So this is really looking quite light right now, and that's okay. When it dries, we can go back in and add some hints of more color. We can make it darker in certain spots. What else do we need to do? Oh, clean my brush in the dirty water tub. Dab this out and go back to, let's see, this was brown over here. I don't know if I want to try to use this brush or not because I don't think I can get a point on it like I showed you with my other brush. Maybe I can. I'm going to go in and, yeah, works sort of, kind of. Put just some stems and branches and just little hints of different colors in here. And of course these need to be, now I'm just scribbling back and forth to make the soil where they're planted, back and forth, again over here, just a little bit back and forth. I went back and got just water in my brush that time, and now I'm going to paint with water. See how I'm getting the color very, very lightly just by adding water. I need a little darker color over here on these, so I'm going to come back in and just put some hints of color. Well, come on, put some hints of color along in here. Dry on dry. This is just it's called dry brushing. All I have is what's left in the brush, and I'm just using it to fill in the blanks. You can go back and do whatever you feel like you need to do to this. If you need to make yourself a clean brush, or if you have one of those brushes that you can pinch to a point, you probably want to go back in and clean up these edges on yours so that it's nice, and it's man-made, so it's going to be nice and sharp edges and symmetrical and so forth. I think because I got a nice amount of paint on that I might be able to dry brush with just my wet brush. Come in where this dark was that I liked so much. But I think I can paint and blend it a little bit better just with water. Yes, that helps. See, now I have the light coming in over here, and it's darker because this is the side away from the sunlight. Probably need to do the same kind of thing all the way down here with some more of that darker color. Lay it in, dry brush it on. I got almost too much paint. So see what I'm doing? I came in with this water on my brush, and I can take that out where there was too much and bring it down to where it's needed, more like that. That's beginning to look better. And I think I still need to come over here because there's not enough color here, and dry brush. I even need a little more blue in here. Dry brush some of that blue in. And again, if I'm getting too much, I'm going to clean my brush, come back in, and just with water, pull those colors so that I don't have too much intensity in one spot, like so. Those windows look kind of not okay, and again, they need cleaning up, but you can do that with a sharp edged brush. What do you think? That's the very beginning, but that's what you can try and see if you like watercolors. And I'll bet you the more you try them, the more you'll like them. Because I still say, oh, yes, you can. Bye.